Welcome to CCTV America's graduation series. This week we're looking at the challenges facing the world's latest university graduates and newest job seekers. China is cranking out graduates at a monster pace. Government is expecting a record 7 million university graduates this year. That is 200,000 more than last year. Now, over the last 10 years, China's universities have been given diplomas to 39 million graduates. Just to put that into perspective, that's nearly the entire population of the country of Argentina. The latest data from 2010 show that people with some form of university education accounted for 8.9% of China's total population. That is more than double the percentage since 2000, and it's still growing. But in a head-to-head competition, China still has a long ways to go to catch up with the United States. 37% of adults here in the States have university degrees. Now, a highly educated workforce is a good thing for China's economy, but the question is, are there going to be new jobs for these new workers? Han Peng is in Beijing, and Han Peng, is there a sense of these challenges that face these millions and millions of graduates out there when they come out into the workforce?
Well, Phil, the numbers you've just gone through are not just figures, they're real stories of students in a desperate search for a good future. Well, during our interview, we visited several places where more than 20 young graduates were sharing one small apartment in Beijing as they sought for jobs. There were students from other places in China. They came to Beijing because they believe that in the capital, there might be more job opportunities.
If you hadn't read their resumes, you wouldn't know that these are some of China's elite college graduates. Some are from outside Beijing, others are last year's graduates, no longer eligible to live in the school's dorms. They all face the same dilemma. They haven't found a job and can't afford a better place to live. Most refused to appear on camera. They didn't want their families to know their predicament.
There are only 2 bathrooms in this dorm. Every evening, about 20 girls have to queue just to take a shower. It's terrible.
This bachelor degree certificate used to be a magic key for Chinese graduates to find a high-paid job. But here, it is just little more than a permission to rent a bed in a crowded job seekers' dormitory. As you can see, this is actually a 3-room apartment, but it's been divided into several beds. This is a shelter for over 20 youngsters looking for jobs. This year, more than 7 million Chinese students will graduate, the highest number in decades. 7 out of 10 have no job offer a month before graduation. In the past decade, the number of grads have nearly quadrupled. China's economy, while growing faster than most, hasn't been able to absorb the flood of job seekers.
Not just because there's more graduates. I think that the market in China has moved significantly from where it was last year. Last year, there was more control over the GDP, there was more control over the growth, there's been more control recently over the exchange rates. Companies are being more cautious about their planning for 2013 when it comes to hiring.
As China's economy places heavier emphasis on revenues from consumer spending, GDP growth has fallen from almost double digits to around 7.7%. Every 1 percentage point drop translates into a loss of around 1 million jobs. Despite the odds, these students choose to stick it out.
I think young people should have the courage to face the difficulties, and I believe one day I will be successful.
One suit and an old umbrella are the sum of these students' worldly possessions as they rush between job fairs in Beijing. For them, there is but one choice: to keep on going, hoping that their next interview will be the one that launches their careers.
Well, these university graduates form what the media here calls the ant group in China, meaning that just like insects, they spend all their day working but still don't get very far in building a decent life. And worse, many of the jobs that students do get here in China provide salaries which comparing to the rising cost of living here, really doesn't seem very high. The average salary, the official figures show that the average salary of a university graduate is just around 2,000 yuan, or $350 a month. not even enough to pay the rent of an apartment here in Beijing. And 2,000 yuan is just a little bit higher than the average salary of the migrant workers, who are believed to be one of the most underprivileged groups here in China.
And these are some amazing figures that you're giving, especially on the salary expectations. Let me ask you this. What can the government do? What should the government do? And what will the government likely do to help these graduates along?
Well, the country's leadership says it is very concerned about the failure of the university graduates in their job hunting. Premier Li Keqiang recently paid a high-profile visit to a university in Hebei. There, he told students that employment is fundamental to people's livelihood, and that he encouraged students to start from grassroots jobs, because it's been difficult to find jobs that looks decent, and the office jobs for white-collar workers. And also, the Ministry of Education has set up a special website trying to help students to find better jobs, trying to connect them with the labor market. It's been difficult for the government now to create more jobs for this record high number of university graduates, because at the moment, China is really determined to control its growth. So what the government can do now is to help students to connect better into the labor market with existing jobs.
Han Peng, great stuff out of Beijing, joining us live. Thank you very much. We now have another expert that's going to come and talk to us a lot more about the challenges that face these graduates. Ann Lee is an adjunct professor of economics and finance at NYU, better known as New York University, and also the author of What the U.S. Can Learn from China. Ann, good to see you again. This is a fascinating topic, because we talk about the graduates of America or Europe, and we fail to realize the numbers are staggering of these new graduates that graduate out of China. They're ambitious, they're young, they want to make money, they want to have jobs. But the problem is, where are the jobs?
Well, there are jobs there. The problem also is that a lot of universities are not teaching the students the skills that the free market demands. When I was teaching at Beijing University, I was told by a lot of employers that they couldn't find graduates with the skills that they were specifically looking for, like, say, computer graphics or some other specific things that they wanted. And so the universities also have to figure out a way to keep up with what the modern economy requires. And a lot of the things that they would like to see in graduates, like teamwork and creativity, that's also not very much emphasized in a lot of higher education. And so I would say that it needs to happen on both ends, where perhaps we need to look at the German model, where there's more apprenticeships, where students can actually start working with corporations while they're still students, to pick up some real work experience before they graduate, so that they could get
as I'm listening to you, the question I wanted to ask you is what the government should do, but you partially answered that indirectly by saying businesses need to do more, mentors need to do more. But backtracking to what the government could do, could the government encourage the private sector to do more?
Well, certainly they could offer tax breaks to corporations that hire young graduates. They could probably provide other incentives that enable students to get jobs more easily with corporations. I'm basically saying that they need to experiment with this, with various policies. And like I said, there are other countries that they could also learn from. And I mentioned Germany, where there's like a two-track system. Because elite education used to be just for, very few people. And now that we're going into mass education, you can't just have kids learning about history and expecting them to completely function in a fast-changing economy. You need to learn other skills like computer programming or other hard skills that the industries demand. And
I want to ask you something that I have a feeling we agree on this, but we talk about graduates from around the world, and the word spoiled comes to mind, and not in a negative sense, but in expectations in terms of salary and job functions. You want to graduate, you want to be CEO and design your own tech company and take it public. Is there an expectation issue with graduates today, especially in China? They come out, they're very smart, they're very ambitious, and they want to start the next Baidu. They want to start the next big thing, But it's really, really hard. I mean, you and I know this. You know, it takes decades of working for bosses and getting beaten up before you have the opportunity to start your own business. What would you tell those students?
I would tell them to keep their dreams and ambitions, but they have to realize that they need to be humble when they go into a job. In fact, I was asked to give a commencement speech in Zhengzhou over Memorial Day weekend where I told the graduates that when I was young and starting out, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. I didn't know that I had to bring coffee to my bosses and do these other things that, frankly, nobody taught me in college. And so they have to basically understand that there are going to be a lot of menial things that they may have to do in order to develop the relationships, to understand the work culture before they get promoted to higher positions.
That is great advice, but I just have one thing to say to you. You're still young. Ann Lee, New York University, thank you very much for helping us better understand the challenges that face graduates today. And don't forget, CCTV's graduation series continues tomorrow. We will look at which degrees you should get to make the most money, especially in this uncertain global economy. For now, though, Biz Asia America continues with the world news.